I'm Jennifer Wayman. I'm from Ogilvy, and I'm delighted to be able to chair this afternoon's session with you all. First off, our first speaker, Dr. Brian Wansink from Cornell University, the author of Mindless Eating, a best-selling book based on his research of how microenvironments influence how and what we eat. So welcome, Brian.
Well, let's get started. How many people have never, ever seen these slides showing us how fat the United States are state by state? Anybody? Well, you can see they're color-coded. It's back in 1991. We had the light blue states, pretty much saying that maybe if you're light blue, up to 10% of the people are overweight, dark blue up to 15%. You see, as time has gone on from 1991, 95 to 2003, we've started to even have to add colors, okay? Now, I wanted to enlist some incredibly talented people I work with to see what this map would look like in the year 2025 if things sort of continued like they would. Now I don't know if you can see it very well from there. You're going to have to look pretty close. Okay, I just totally made that up. But what we want to get at is that there is an obesity problem in the United States. And when it comes to children, half of them who are considered to be overweight, one of the key people to blame, or entities to blame, are school lunches. Let's take a look at school lunches. What we're going to be doing is I'll talk a little bit about two things that mess us up. Then I'll talk about school lunchrooms and something we're doing to kind of rectify things called the Smarter Lunchroom movement. I'll talk about slim by design. I think that's where the real potential is for us as social marketers. I'm going to end with some news you can use. Okay, here's the mission of our lab, is to try to discover and disseminate what we think would be transforming solutions to help people eat better. I got a curious call from the LA Times a while back, and what they had done was about a year ago, they had come up with this great idea that they're going to get kids to eat better in school lunchrooms by essentially only offering escarole and tofu. Okay, so they did this, and the results came back in. And the reporter, a very amazing person, called me and said astonishingly, "You'll never guess what happened when they made those changes." I said, "People stopped eating lunch?" She goes, "How did you know?" And this ends up being the problem. There's all sorts of unexpected consequences to changes that are made that aren't really very marketing based. And it's hard to predict what those are. And even though that's our expertise, is predicting behavior, it's hard to guess what those are. So here's where we're going to start. We're going to start with two starting points about how kids eat. And the first is, do kids really know what they like? And then we're going to look at, do kids know why they do what they do? Because if we can answer those two questions, we might be able to think of an easy way to set up lunchrooms so kids pick up the apple and not the cookie. Okay? Now we can do this with kids, but hey, come on, kids are kind of silly anyway. But let's look at these questions with adults. Do we know what we like? Well, a while back, a gentleman who's seated right there contacted me, and he had about 33 restaurants that sold healthy things. The problem was nobody ever went there, okay? So he'd swap out like the oil out of chocolate cake and put in applesauce or whatever. He'd bake things rather than fry things. And one of the things he wanted to figure out is, what can we do to get people to buy this stuff? Well, one of the things we did, we made a bunch of changes. One test we did was for 6 weeks, we did something as simple as renaming stuff. So chocolate, let's say the seafood fillet, it was on the menu for a couple weeks. We took it off for a couple weeks. We put it back on and called it succulent Italian seafood fillet. Okay? Now it's just the same dried old fish stick that they had in their menu 2 weeks ago. I think it was the same one, actually. But now it's got a cool name. And one of the things we found was that sales went up by 28%, ratings of that product went up dramatically. People rated the restaurant as being more trendy and up to date. They even rated the chef as having more years of culinary training. Okay, now this is a guy who had been fired like a month ago from Arby's. So, there's no culinary training there at all. But the crazy thing was, it didn't matter how stupid the name was we gave something. People loved it. So we even took this dried out old sheet cake, and instead of calling it dried out old sheet cake, we changed the name to Belgian Black Forest double chocolate cake. Okay. Now, it doesn't even matter that the Black Forest isn't in Belgium. Okay. People ate it and they go, oh, Antwerp, oh, yes, yes. But what happens is our expectations become very, very hardwired to our taste interpretation of things within a pretty big range. We know this. You're out for dinner last night and your friend says, hey, this is a really great appetizer. What do you think? I mean, you're predisposed to find something about it you like. But if that person said, oh, wow, I'm tasting this appetizer. Something seems a little bit weird about it. What do you think? Well, you're going to find something that you don't like about it also, because we are very suggestible. And this is something that can be incredibly well leveraged in a lot of cases. Now, I realize that we don't think this happens to us. But let's see how it works with some other people.
Rainforest smoothie.
It's unbelievable how suggestible our taste is. I'm Brian Wansink.
To demonstrate that, Wansink tricked some of our own staff, 7 of 2020's college interns. First, he added some chocolate sauce to vanilla yogurt. Then he told the students,
We're going to be doing a little strawberry yogurt taste test.
Okay.
on the table he had some strawberry yogurt containers.
So if you could put your blindfolds on, what
The
else?
students put on blindfolds, tasted the yogurt, and then Wansink asked them to compare the strawberry tastes.
I think they both tasted really strong with strawberry.
All the students were certain they were eating strawberry yogurt.
This one had a much stronger strawberry taste to it.
It just tasted more like strawberry.
With this woman, Wansink tried something different.
We're going to be tasting a couple of different kinds of yogurts today.
Okay.
He didn't tell her what flavor it was, so when he asked her to rate the strawberry taste,
Honestly, I didn't notice it's strawberry.
Okay, good.
and yet by the time I interviewed the group, she too had accepted the idea that she'd eaten strawberry.
When you follow up with the question which one is more strawberry, I was I had to choose one.
They all believed it was strawberry. Actually, none of them was strawberry. It was vanilla yogurt with chocolate sauce.
Stop.
That can't be.
What do you mean it can't be?
Well, I thought I tasted strawberry. I guess also, when I opened my eyes, the two yogurts in front had a strawberry on the box.
I think you're joshing us right now. I do. Because I feel like there was definitely a taste of strawberry.
No, it was vanilla yogurt with chocolate sauce. But you thought it was strawberry. Why?
It tasted like strawberry. I swear it did.
The moral to these stories, says Wansink, is that we are much less taste sensitive than we think we are.
We don't want to really believe that we are duped or fooled by something as simple as the... There's incredible news you can use there. Not even if you're trying to get kids to eat healthy, but even if you're just trying to be a good dinner party host. If expectations end up tremendously hardwiring, biasing what your guests think, simply by changing their expectation, by using nicer plates, using nicer lighting, or by giving something a name, having nice music, can have an incredible impact as to how good people think it will taste, and it has a referred impact on their actual evaluation. But what do you think the first thing is if you were to walk into a lunch line of most, I can probably say North American schools, but I'll say US schools. What do you think the first thing is you see when you turn the corner? In almost a third of the cases, the first thing you'll see is the garbage can. Okay. There's a lot of things that are very easy, low-hanging fruits, very easy wins that can be done to actually make kids think the food tastes a whole lot better than it actually does. Well, here's the second thing we're going to look at. Do kids really know why they do what they do? And again, we can show that kids don't, but do we even know why we do what we do? And if you look at something to the buffet lunch you just had, a lot of people think that buffets are evil. There's no way to eat at a buffet without overeating. In fact, it's to the point where there's actually been, in the United States, there's been suggested legislation to tax buffets, to tax us for going to buffets, to restrict where they can be located, like their bars and stuff. But it raises the question, if buffets are evil, why are there so many skinny people who eat at buffets? Are they just waiting to gain 700 pounds, over the course of the next couple of years? One of the things we did was we went to a bunch of buffets, and we took coders, and what we did is we stared at buffet goers. Now, these are all approved studies, okay? We stared at buffet goers, coded them on about 70 different things: who they're with, how fast they walked, what time they came in, where they sat, whether they're using a fork or chopsticks, to see what is it that makes the skinny people, what do the skinny people do that the heavy people don't? Because if you were asked skinny people, hey, what do you do differently that helps you eat less? What do you think the typical skinny person would say? I don't know, I have no idea. But what do you think it is that a skinny person might do differently than a heavy person at a buffet? Knowingly or unknowingly? Sir? Yeah, they might eat more slowly, yeah? What would be another thing? Smaller plates? Yeah, stop eating, and that's exactly the stuff they do. First of all, we find about 73% of all skinny people, the first thing they do when they walk up to a buffet is they walk around, they look at the food, and then they get the plate, okay? About 75% of all heavy people do just the opposite. They walk up, pick up a plate, look at the first food item and say to themselves, do I want it or do I not want it? Do I want it, do I not want it? So the first group sort of cherry picks. The second thing they do is they sit, on average, about 16 feet farther away from the buffet than the heavy people. And they are 3 times as likely to face away from the buffet. They're either their side pointing toward the buffet or their backs to the buffet. Again, about 70% of all heavy people sit right there, keeping their eyes on the Peking duck, making sure it's not going to move. Okay? And you're right about the chewing, too. The typical skinny person chews about 15 times versus 12 times. They're almost 7 times more likely to use smaller plates if available and stuff like this. But now what happens if you were to intercept these people in the parking lot afterwards and say, hey, why did you sit so far away from the buffet? What do you think they'd say? Yeah, first of all, they don't even realize that they did it. And if they do realize it, they kind of go, I don't really know. And the weird thing is, this stuff really becomes hardwired. Now, we're interested in social marketing. If we just wanted to give advice to buffet goers, we have thin diners sitting far away, heavy diners sitting right next to the buffet. But one solution to this would be to tell all diners, okay, use a smaller plate, sit far away from the buffet, scout at the buffet, use chopsticks, etc. But what's interesting was, certainly after this research was done, I was contacted by a young man whose father, he said he owns some Chinese restaurants in central Pennsylvania. I was thinking maybe 3 or 4 in Harrisburg. And he said, we saw that stuff, and what we did is we said, well, what can we do to make people act like skinny people at buffets? Because if we can figure out how to do that, we can save on food costs, we can make more money, and there's going to be less waste. So what they did is they reduced the size of the plates. They gave everybody chopsticks. You had to ask for a fork if you wanted it. They had their hostess seat everybody as far away from the buffet as possible, and then only as more people came did they get to sit closer. What they did is they took all the plates, they put them on the back side of the buffet, so everybody had to, oh my God, trudge around the buffet to get their plates. At least they saw it was on the end. And the last thing they did is they put up plants in front of the buffet so no table could you see the food. And I thought that was pretty cool, and I asked the guy, I said, I called him back a few months later and asked him how it went. He goes, yeah, really good, but geez, he says, it's really hard to do. And I'm like, how hard can it be to make 5 changes in 3 or 4 restaurants? And he said, my dad's got 63 restaurants. So I'm like, ooh, watch out, P.F. Chang. Okay. Well, if we end up looking at this, our past focus of a lot of effort to change obesity has been top-down. It's been hoping that regulation is going to work or their industry standards or something would work. 2 other options, though, end up being kind of moved from left to right and looking at how opinion leaders can change things, whether that opinion leader be Disney or McDonald's when they change things, or looking at how certification programs can change. But what we haven't tapped into is looking at what we can do to encourage actionism on behalf of consumers, either to vote with their pocketbooks or to encourage changes to be made. I'm going to look at this in a number of cases, but I want to give you just an idea of a metaphor, and that's going to earn an example rather than this is taking eating behavior to schools. And it's something we started 3 years ago called the Smarter Lunchroom Movement. It's already in 19,000 schools, and it's going to be probably in 30,000 by the end of 2014. And it started with a call I got from the Commissioner of Health from New York a while back that said, we're going to run a pilot program to see what we can do to increase whole fruit sales in New York State. And they said, so if you take a 50-cent apple or orange or banana or pear, how much do we need to reduce the price of that through subsidies so that kids eat 5% more fruit? Well, we took a look at the typical, I don't know when the last time was you've been in a school lunchroom, but here's what they look like. That fruit we're talking about is in this big chafer dish in the dingiest part of the line. It looks sort of like a large, like family-sized hospital bedpan, okay? The fruit's there. I mean, the question isn't dropping the fruit by 5%. We said make these two changes, put it in a nice bowl, put it in a well-lit part of the line. Just make those changes. Keep the same price. 5 schools did that. Sales over the next semester didn't go up 5%. They went up 103%. 2 schools didn't do it. Their sales went up 0%. One school, I guess, didn't get the memo. And they put it in a nice bowl, but what they did is they found a desk lamp in a in a closet and put it on the line and turned it on, and sales went up 187%. We're like, all right, note to self, use a desk lamp. Well, shortly after, the USDA, they've been having problems trying to get kids to eat more salad bars, and that's been a big initiative. And they were saying, what would the ideal salad bar look like? You know, what's the price of it? What would, do we need to add stuff like those little Barbie-sized corns, or what do we need to do? Now let's take a look at a typical salad bar, and this happens to be one in a junior high. A typical school with a salad bar, kids would come in that upper right-hand corner. There'd be the hot lunch entrees in the top. On the side, there might be the a la carte stuff, a couple cash registers, and typically there's this beleaguered salad bar that looks kind of like a compost pile on wheels over the side. And as an example, in a bunch of schools, we simply did this, and this took about 40 seconds, to move that salad bar just 10 feet and turn it so kids with their baseball hat on backwards, trudging with their pizza, would bump that salad bar on the way to the cash register, commit one direction or the other, and go around it. And that would happen for a week or two, but slowly people would start picking stuff up to the point that within 2 weeks, salad bar sales at the typical place we went into went up 200 to 300%. Didn't cost the school a dime, it cost them 40 seconds in moving stuff. And so this raises a bigger question. What are some of these social marketing things we could do in schools for no cost or low cost that could nudge the way kids change so that we wouldn't have to force them to eat their arugula, but we could actually make them want to do that? And so one thing we did, we came up with we started doing a bunch of research on this, and this is from an op-ed piece we did in the New York Times. But for instance, we found you put a stupid name on something, it doesn't matter it's stupid, sales go up dramatically. You end up putting the healthiest food first out of 3, sales go up 11% regardless of what it is. Okay? Use smaller bowls. And what astounded us was it didn't matter how bad of an operationalization it was that people did, it always worked at least to some degree. I mean, here's a really bad example. Very baby step, hearty vegetable soup, clam chowder, hamburger, large hot dogs, and grilled chicken roll. It's kind of a verb, I guess. Well, let's look at what this would look like if we were to do it in an average junior high anywhere.
The masterminds behind the cafeteria redesign are Cornell University professors David Just and Brian Wansink. I wanted to know how they're going to basically trick teens into eating right. So what are we doing here?
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a bunch of the milk, put it in front, so if a person's thirsty, at least they have the option of picking something up, and at least they have to reach over the white milk if they want to pick up a flavored sugared beverage.
Step 2. They took the pizza, which was the first thing in the lunch line, and moved it towards the back. And the veggies and the healthy bean burrito moved right to the front. Step 3, they renamed the healthy food.
We find that changing something as small as calling these mixed vegetables California blend or the Big Bed bean burritos increased sales by about 27%.
Step 4, they moved the fruit from a plastic tub into a pretty fruit bowl. And finally, they took the cookies and put them just out of reach.
They're going to have to ask one of the food service workers to help pick it up. We think that's just enough of a barrier to keep some percentage of kids from saying, Whatever, I'll have an orange.
The professors rolled up their sleeves, made their changes, and now it's lunchtime.
Oh, there she's getting her tray.
She grabbed a sandwich,
She's getting an Arizona iced tea, I think.
an orange juice,
And she got the cookie. So, Samantha, this time you didn't get the cookie and you got a piece of fruit instead. Why'd you get the fruit this time? Why do you think?
I don't know.
This was an unbelievable success. Fruit increased by 102% simply by putting it in a nice bowl.
The sweet drinks were also harder to get to, and Jane, Marcy, Richie, and Levante fell right into our trap. Last time they grabbed Gatorade, Snapple, and Arizona iced tea, but this time,
Well, the water was just in front, so I just grabbed it.
sales of sugary drinks plunged by 17%, while purchases of easy-to-reach milk soared 46%.
Whatever was easiest to reach, that was good enough for them, and that was enough to get them to change.
Another hit, the Big Bad Bean Burrito, sold out for the first time ever. The professors say, on average, students' plates this time around contained about 18% fewer calories, and they made healthier choices.
Now, what did Samantha say when he asked, hey, why'd you get the apple or the cookie last time, now you got the apple? I don't know. And it explains why this stuff has such a pronounced impact on kids and why it lasts semester after semester after semester. Well, what I want to look at just last very quickly is an incredible social marketing opportunity. I think it's one we have to try to make things slim by design. That's not slim by education. It's not slim by forcing people to do something, but slim by setting up an environment so it works for us rather than against us, okay? And it looks at 5 things within our eating radius, or our food radius, rather. Our food radius is the place, it's about 5 miles for most people, the average person, but it's a place where we purchase or eat about 80% of our food. And that's our home, restaurants, our 2 or 3 favorite top restaurants, our favorite grocery store where kids go to school and where we work, okay? And let's take a look at this. Let's look at win-win changes that can help us eat better. We know for a fact that if you take home leftovers from a restaurant, you end up eating less. So one thing you can do, people can do, is take home ask for half an order to be boxed. But one thing they could ask the restaurant to do is, hey, why don't you sell half-priced entrees, half-size entrees? Now, we might think a restaurant would say, well, that's crazy, but a smart restaurant wouldn't. I mean, here's something we did with the largest truck stop chain in the nation. We convinced them to offer half-size portions of their best-selling entrees. Did sales go down for those? Absolutely, they went down. They went down by about 30%. Sales of half-price entrees more than 3-fold compensated for that. And not only that, sales of side items went up, because if you're ordering a smaller entree, you say, hey, what the heck, I'm going to get a salad, I'm going to get some coffee. So we found that the restaurant ended up making more money by offering these half-size portions. This was a win-win situation. What about other places? Well, you can take a look at the grocery stores. We find that people end up buying a lot healthier if the first 3 aisles they shop in are healthy aisles. Well, you can either shop those first, or you can actually encourage the grocery store to make those changes, or you'll go shop at Wegmans down the street that already has it set up that way. Same thing with workplaces. We find people eat terribly when they eat at their desk, but you have to ask them why they work at their desk. They don't say, because I love work. They just don't think there's any really cool option like a brown bag series or a nice lunchroom, things like that. So I think there's an incredible opportunity here. And the opportunity ends up being, first of all, to discover these things as researchers, discover simple, scalable interventions. Scalable, simple, okay? And then next, build win-win cases for how they would work for companies and win-win cases for consumers about how they can tell their local restaurant, grocery store, whatever, how to make those changes. Okay, I don't want us to overlook this activism notion, okay, because activism is just expecting somebody else to do it. Clicktivism is just clicking something and hoping it happens. But actionism means doing something yourself and then telling others how they can help you do that. Okay, in conclusion, back to you, 3 things. Where do you want to sit at a Chinese buffet? Far away and face away, all right. How do you become a better cook in 5 minutes? You give something a name, okay? Okay, and what do you want to buy to put on your home counter? Fruit bowl, yeah. And the last thing, if you have a postdoc or you want to visit, where do you want to consider coming in and seeing us? Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Do you want to stay up for a couple questions? We have time for probably two or three questions. Anybody? Okay.
Well,
Is there one? Oh, great.
you can probably shout it out if you want to.
Can I sing instead? No. Just wondering if you've had any resistance from the food industry, in particular those companies who occupied the first 3 aisles and probably very interested in having their products there.
No. Not at all. Actually, in almost all these cases, they've been very embracing because this ends up being a win-win solution for some of them. Now, there's some of them that would really like to be in the first 3 aisles that maybe aren't that healthy, but they also know that being able to not have their slotting allowance legislated or regulated because people are starting to eat a little bit healthier and all of a sudden getting a little bit of heat off them can actually be a pretty good thing. But like in almost all these cases, whether it be the stuff we're doing in restaurants, the stuff we did with small packaging and things like this, the initial impact of some of them is like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. But once you can build a case of how it's profitable for them in certain ways, they really see it as sort of the third alternative versus the, legislators, or let's say activists, win, they lose, they win, activists lose. This is a third alternative where a lot of people win. That's a tremendous question. Yes?
Thanks. Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Are you doing any work in trying to change the behavior of food choices made by people in relation to the environmental sustainability of their food choices? So, for example, potentially reduced meat consumption, or is it all to do with health and weight?
Yeah, not doing very much because it's not really sure what the answer of that is. Is it more sustainable to buy things that are very local or things that are more efficiently produced elsewhere? I'm not sure, and it's a really muddy thing to be in. We think there's so many more low-hanging fruits working in this area. I mean, one thing we're doing is we're doing the same Smarter Lunchroom thing. We're coming up with essentially smarter soup kitchens, about how places that serve food to food pantries and soup kitchens can help people pick up the healthy stuff and not just pick up all the starches and protein, which they usually do.
No, the reason I ask is I was in Africa recently, and there's a real big problem with getting people to stop cooking with palm oil, but that's so ingrained in their culture, and the behavior change strategies are really weak.
No, I see what you mean, yeah. No, we're not doing things like that. I mean, if we knew that was a big problem, I didn't know it until now. It'd be something to direct some attention toward, but I didn't know it until now. Well, thank you very much.